I'm Paul Edwards. I'm an independent horror author and, first and foremost, a monster fan. And I've just got a copy of Famous Monsters of Filmland, issue number 8 from 1960. Usually, a copy of this magazine commands a very steep price. I was able to get this one because, as you can see, the spine is a mess. It's been taped on in years past. So, because the quality of this copy is not great, I was able to obtain it. And I thought that I would go through it page by page with you so that if you don't have your own copy of Famous Monsters of Filmland, issue number 8, you can see what's in it as I'm seeing for myself for the first time. Okay, I've taken this issue of Famous Monsters of Filmland, issue number 8 from 1960, out of the plastic protection. And now, for the first time, I'm going to look through this magazine. I have no idea what's in it other than what's suggested on the cover. Lon Chaney Sr., Man of a Thousand Faces. What's the new look in Monsters? A photo preview of the movie 13 Ghosts. That gives you an idea of what time frame we're in here. First of all, this cover, I don't recognize this image, and I'm reasonably conversant in 20th century monster movies. I don't think this is from a specific movie. I think this is just some artwork of a ghoul or a ghost and, not something particular to a specific movie. But anyway, we're going to go page by page through this issue now. Mindful of the fact that the spine of this magazine is in terrible shape, I'm going to be as careful as I can with it. Now, you may think I'm going to go front to back, but if you are a true fan of Famous Monsters of Filmland, you know that you always start at the back of the magazine where the crazy ads are and work your way to the front. So we're going to be turning it over now. Famous Monsters of Filmland outsells Life magazine, in Costa Rica. You can tell that Forrest J. Ackerman came up with that because he was big on these sort of ridiculous horror puns. 1,000 degrees cooler inside. School's out, ghouls in. Your horror scope inside. And here we have images from the House on Haunted Hill starring Vincent Price. And this, although it looks like this is Bela Lugosi Dracula, this is Bela Lugosi as a vampire, but he's not Dracula. He's playing Count Armand Tesla in Return of the Vampire, and this is the werewolf that is his familiar in that movie. Ha! See, I actually do know what I'm talking about on these so far. Okay, so let's look, and I am going to be just as surprised as you are to see what is in the back. Okay. Project any picture in this magazine up to 4 feet wide. Okay, that's not too impressive. The back of Famous Monsters of Filmland became well known for their wild ads. It looks like in this issue they weren't quite up to their peak production of wild ads. Although these are pretty good. Now you can hear your favorite monsters, and there's recordings of movie soundtracks. Things like this are available at our fingertips now, but when you were a kid, especially in the 1960s, but even into the 70s, it was a big deal to get something like that, a recorded movie soundtrack from a horror movie. Horror books for sale. Okay. Horror decals. Tremendous 30-foot balloons. Inflates up to giant 20 to 30 feet. Something tells me they would not last long. Wow. What's the price for the 30-foot balloon? $2 plus 50 cents shipping. Zachary was a big-name horror host. 3D comics. Comes with 3D space goggles. Okay. Now, they would sell movies in the back of these magazines, but this is before the days of videotape. What they had were actual reels of film. You could get 8mm or 16mm film, and you could order a section of the movie. It wasn't the complete movie. Like if you bought this one, say, you wouldn't get the whole film Bride of Frankenstein. You would get about maybe 3 to 5 minutes worth of Bride of Frankenstein, probably the scene where the bride is revived and meets the Frankenstein monster. And you would have to play this on a projector in your house. Same projector that your parents would put your vacation films up on a screen with. We had that set up. Some of these you're not sure what movie they came from, like Battle of the Giants. This probably came from the 1940s version of 1 million BC, but I'm not positive. It came from outer space. At the time this magazine came out, this movie was only maybe 3 or 4 years old. Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. But again, you wouldn't get the whole movie. It wasn't like owning the whole movie. Just highlights. A human skull. Nice. Frankenstein keychain. You can order something like this easily on eBay now, but in 1960, when this came out, you couldn't get something like this because the stores wouldn't carry it because they wouldn't sell enough of them, and there was no other way to get any. So the fact that you could buy one out of the back of this magazine blew kids' minds. Okay. Rubber masks. Okay. Zacherle, again, was a horror host, a host of late-night monster movies on TV. And the Alfred E. Newman character from Mad Magazine. Dentist for... Oh, I don't like this. I was just at the dentist this morning. No, I don't play that. Let's skip that. A 6-foot-tall Zacherle. That might be overkill, even if you're a Zacherle fan. More masks. If you've ever bought a Rob Zombie album, he's the same age as me, by the way, you probably recognize some of these because he used this artwork or artwork very similar to it on some of his album materials. And he has a zombie mask that fits right in with these others. You could get, but it's not just a mask, you can get a monster hand. At one point they were selling, oh, here they are, monster feet. You could buy monster feet that you would wear like socks. So if you were something like, say, I Was a Teenage Werewolf, and you wanted to be like Michael Landon in I Was a Teenage Werewolf, well, you could also not just have the face of a werewolf, but the hands and feet of one. Monster Club members. So in these days, kids would write in letters to the magazine saying how much they loved monsters and which monsters were their favorite and so on. And you could get your picture placed in the magazine. There's the Amazing Colossal Man. Screams from Monster Club members. Okay. And they'll put in promotional pictures and then have little humorous captions on them. You can get a free lifetime subscription or $25 cash to the first person who can fill this page with a photo of the Thing. That's not It's Clobbering Time Thing. That's the Thing from Another World, the Thing. Oh my gosh. Okay, now we're getting into the articles. And images like this that are easily available to us now by Googling, kids had no access to in the 60s and 70s other than in a magazine like this. The Robinson Crusoe story. Nice. So, owning a magazine like this was great because you actually had at your fingertips pictures of monsters that you could look at anytime you wanted instead of just waiting for them to come on your TV, hopefully this weekend. Having them at your fingertips was a big deal. Columbia Studios does it again. Now, oh, aha. Now we're getting somewhere. That is this. Now I see. All right, sweet. Let's see what we have back here. 13 Ghosts. Okay, so this article is about the original version of 13 Ghosts. I'm putting it all together now. These must be the 13 Ghosts, and then what's on the cover here is an artist's rendition of one of the 13 Ghosts. That makes sense. Okay, see? Learn something new every day. 13 Ghosts was remade. Probably more people are familiar now with the remake, but at the time it came out, it was a big deal. All right, another thing that you might not have had as a kid was information about your favorite horror stars. So if you wanted to know right now, what movies was Lon Chaney in? Well, that's easy. You could just look up Lon Chaney on Wikipedia or any other website that lists, a filmography of an actor. You couldn't do that in the old days. If you were lucky, a magazine would print the information you wanted. A complete list of Lon Chaney, this is Lon Chaney Sr.'s, film appearances. And it goes through them all. He was in a ton. He's best remembered by our generation as having been the original Hunchback of Notre Dame and the original the Hunchback of Notre Dame and the original Phantom of the Opera. I got distracted because I noticed this picture here. This is from a sadly lost film called London After Midnight. Lon Chaney is here playing a vampire. This film, unfortunately, is a lost film as of now, but other old horror films have been considered lost, and then copies of them have been found, and now we have them again. So for a long time, the complete Mystery of the Wax Museum from 1933 was considered a lost film, or at least the complete version was lost. But now we have the whole thing. We got it back in the 80s. So my hope is that before I die, somewhere will come up with a actual copy of London After Midnight, because Chaney's vampire is incredible, just incredible. A different version of this story was filmed called Mark of the Vampire in the 30s, and it's the same basic story as London After Midnight. So if you are truly hungry to see this movie, you can at least see Mark of the Vampire, and you do get to see Bela Lugosi as a vampire, although he's not Dracula in that one. Here is Lon Chaney Sr. in some of his most famous bits. Okay, well, this is Lon Chaney Jr. Oh, they admit that. Okay. Like father, like son. Family cut up Lon Chaney Jr. Yeah. Well, Lon Chaney Sr. is the bigger of the two stars. Oh my gosh. The Man Beneath the Monster. What he was usually called was the Man of 1,000 Faces. In fact, they have that on the cover here. Chaney, Man of 1,000 Faces. That's Lon Chaney Sr. Quasimodo, a.k.a. the Hunchback of Notre Dame. One of Lon Chaney's biggest achievements in terms of makeup and performance. He was a very agile man. That was not a stunt man that was climbing up and down on the front of the cathedral in the film. That was actually Lon Chaney himself doing those stunts. Okay. Mr. Monster, the legendary Lon. His was the face that launched 1,000 shrieks. His the form that raised horror to its highest peaks. You can tell. Oh, yeah, you can tell Forrest J. Ackerman wrote that himself. These were the movies that scared the heck out of him when he was a boy, and he was passing the torch on to us in the 60s and 70s. Actually, late 50s, 60s, and 70s. And, of course, we are glad to pass the torch on now. That is a Morlock from The Time Machine. Well, it used to be common if you were going to have a giant creature and it was a giant version of a real-life animal to use this sort of a double screen effect where you would just film the animal doing what you wanted it to and then separately film the actors doing what you wanted them to and just combine the images. It was a lot cheaper than using a suit actor or stop motion, both of which would look better, but it was a common technique. That's from Journey to the Center of the Earth. That's the only monster you get in Journey to the Center of the Earth, though. Whoa. That's a good shot. Yep. That's the mole people. Forrest J. Ackerman strikes again. This is obviously from the film House of Usher, based on Edgar Allan Poe's Fall of the House of Usher, starring Vincent Price. And what would happen in one of these articles, they'd talk about the movie, and then they'd talk about upcoming films that one or more of these actors would be in. And sometimes, from our perspective, we can look back and see that they got it right, and sometimes we can look back and say, what are you talking about? And it turns out that one of these movies was canceled or released under a different name or starring someone else, because Hollywood is always changing. But some of their predictions are pretty accurate. Mm-hmm. Oh, Curse of the Faceless Man. This actor here, Richard Anderson, was Oscar Goldman in The $6 Million Man. He was the hero in this film, Curse of the Faceless Man, which is sort of a mummy movie, but instead of a bandaged corpse, like in a mummy film, this was a victim of the Mount Vesuvius eruption. And this is a real thing that happened. Mount Vesuvius erupted with such force that it instantly coated people with volcanic ash and basically turned them to stone right where they stood. And if you go to Vesuvius, and I have been there, you can see these people that are trapped forever as stone figures. It's sad and it's very creepy. So this was one of those people who had come to life. That was the premise of this film. This guy's not feeling so good. Okay, Brides of Dracula actually is a very, very good Hammer film. It's probably the only film you'll ever see that has Professor Van Helsing but doesn't have Dracula. Christopher Lee didn't want to come back for that one, but Peter Cushing came back as Van Helsing. And so this was the vampire that we got instead. He was good. He was just no Christopher Lee. Behind the scenes. I like that shot. Another shot from Brides of Dracula. Oh, The Land Unknown. When I was a kid, this sort of movie was more my speed. Dinosaurs, things like that. Usually, older horror fans tend to gravitate more towards the more gothic monsters, I think. But when you're a kid, dinosaurs are where it's at. That hasn't changed much over the years. Another Forrest J. Ackerman pun. Snakes Alive. Okay. The gastrological horror scope. You got 2 puns in there. Okay. Table of contents. I'm one of the 13 ghosts you'll find on page 34. Okay. And of course, Forrest J. Ackerman is our hero, the ultimate fanboy. Him and Paul Naschy, I think, are the ultimate fanboys of all time. Happy 4th of Ghoul Eye. That's got Forrest J. Ackerman written all over it. Okay, that is Famous Monsters of Filmland, issue number 8 from 1960. Thank you for spending time with me looking through this magazine. I'm going to put it back in its protective plastic in just a minute. If you're interested in vintage monsters and vintage horror, you'll probably be interested in my book series, the Mourner's Woods books. They're available on Amazon.com. I have 6 of them out so far. There's different monsters and different books. They're available for 99 cents for an ebook, $9.99 paperback, and they are also now out in audiobook. That's the Mourner's Woods books. My name is Paul Edwards, and thanks for enjoying this vintage horror magazine with me. See you later.